My ex falsely accused me of getting her pregnant. The baby's actually my best friend's. I'm crushed by the betrayal. I'm 28 and I've been ensnared in a whirlwind of chaos and deceit lately. My ex-girlfriend, Sarah, a name I'll use for her, and I had a relationship that seemed to start straight out of a romance movie, but it ended in something far darker. Sarah and I met through mutual friends at a party. The spark between us was undeniable. For the first year, everything seemed perfect. Spontaneous trips, endless laughter, and lazy Sundays in front of the TV. We were both deeply committed to our careers. I'm a software engineer, and she's a graphic designer. Despite our demanding jobs, we made time for each other. Our families adored us as a couple, but perfection was a mirage. Slowly, cracks began to appear. Sarah's comments about my work hours and female friends started as casual jabs but quickly turned into something more sinister. Her jealousy transformed into a full-blown obsession. She began scrutinizing my every move, interrogating me about innocuous texts and calls, and even snooping through my phone when she thought I wasn't looking. Things took a darker turn one night when I went out with my best friend, Mike, and his girlfriend. Sarah, who had canceled on us at the last minute due to work, later called me, her voice trembling with rage and fear. She had seen a Snapchat story from a mutual friend who was at the same restaurant and accused me of lying about my whereabouts. I spent hours trying to convince her that I was innocent, but the paranoia had taken hold. As I plunged into a critical work project, staying late and working weekends, Sarah's behavior became increasingly erratic. She bombarded me with calls, showed up at my office unannounced, and even started tailing me, convinced that I was hiding something. I tried everything to reassure her, introducing her to my coworkers, sharing my location, and even contemplating quitting the project. But nothing was enough. The nightmare reached its peak when Sarah accused me of cheating, claiming that a baby she said she was pregnant with wasn't mine. Her accusations were a sick twist in the drama she had orchestrated. She had been unfaithful, and the child wasn't mine at all. The crushing weight of her betrayal left me reeling. The trust and love I thought we had were shattered, and I was left grappling with the intense aftermath of her deceit and the chilling realization of her true nature. Emily and I had been working closely together on a critical project, often staying late to meet looming deadlines. Our collaboration was intense, and Sarah's jealousy had already been simmering. One evening, Sarah saw some work-related texts between Emily and me, and her rage erupted. She stormed into the office when Emily and I were alone in the conference room, working on a presentation. Sarah's entrance was a scene from a nightmare. She burst through the door, her face twisted in a blend of fury and desperation. Screaming and sobbing uncontrollably, she accused Emily of trying to steal me away and hurled a barrage of vile insults at her. I was paralyzed, trying in vain to calm her down, but her hysteria was a tidal wave. She screamed at me, her voice raw and guttural, and in a moment of sheer madness, she threw a potted plant at me, missing only by a hair's breadth. The chaos forced me to call security. Their arrival was a stark contrast to the pandemonium Sarah had created. They escorted her out, but the damage was done. I was mortified, and Emily was visibly shaken, her professionalism masking a clear discomfort. The next day, I had to face my boss, who, though understanding, made it clear that such outbursts were unacceptable and jeopardized our work environment. The atmosphere became stifling. My interactions with Emily turned awkward, and some colleagues began to view me with a wary, judgmental eye, as though I were a magnet for trouble. Realizing the relationship with Sarah could no longer continue, I took a day off work and went to her apartment to end things. What followed was a scene of pure, unfiltered chaos. Sarah's reaction was a maelstrom of yelling, crying, and accusations. She claimed I had never loved her and had been cheating on her all along. In a final act of rage, she hurled some of my belongings out of the window. The apartment was a battleground of emotions and shattered trust. As I left, her parting words were a chilling threat. She vowed to make me pay and ruin my life for breaking her heart. At the time, I brushed it off as a product of her emotional turmoil, relief flooding me as I walked away from the wreckage of our relationship. For the next few weeks, Sarah's attempts to contact me were relentless. Her messages veered from desperate pleas for reconciliation to veiled threats about exposing me as a cheater. I blocked her on all platforms, hoping this would finally sever the toxic tie. Eventually, she seemed to relent, and I began to piece my life back together. I immersed myself in work, rekindled friendships I had neglected, and started to feel a semblance of normalcy return. But last Friday night, as I was enjoying a rare moment of peace with a pizza and a beer, a knock on the door shattered the calm. My heart sank as I opened it to find Sarah standing there. Her appearance was ghostly, her eyes hollow and haunted. The serenity I had worked so hard to rebuild was suddenly threatened once again. Before I could even process what was happening, Sarah blurted out, "I'm pregnant, and it's yours." Her words hit me like a cold, brutal slap. My initial reaction was disbelief. We'd always been meticulous about contraception, and given the state of our relationship before it ended, I couldn't shake the suspicion that this might be a desperate ploy to manipulate me into coming back. I asked her how far along she was, and she said about 2 months. My mind raced. 2 months ago, we were still together, but the period was marked by a storm of arguments and tension. I tried to recall our last intimate moment, but the details were lost in the haze of our deteriorating relationship. I invited her inside more out of sheer shock than anything else. As we sat in my living room, I asked her about how she discovered the pregnancy. She told me she missed her period, took a home test, and then went to a doctor for confirmation. I told her I needed time to process this news, offered her a glass of water, and retreated to the kitchen, desperate to clear my head. When I returned, my blood ran cold. Sarah was going through my phone, which I had left on the coffee table. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted, and she jumped, dropping my phone. "I was just checking the time," she stammered. "No, you were snooping, just like always," I snapped. I had reached my limit. I demanded proof before I could even begin to absorb this bombshell. I asked for a paternity test, which visibly enraged her. She accused me of distrust. Ironic, given her own history of unfounded accusations. "After everything we've been through, you should know I wouldn't lie about this," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. But all I could think about were the countless times she had questioned my honesty. I told her that considering our fractured history and her past behavior, I couldn't accept her word alone. I said I'd be willing to discuss it further if she could provide medical proof of the pregnancy and agree to a paternity test. Sarah's rage exploded. She unleashed a torrent of insults, calling me a coward for not taking responsibility. She threatened to tell all our mutual friends and my family that I was abandoning her and the child, then stormed out, slamming the door with a force that left my ears ringing. Since that night, I've been a wreck. I'm unable to focus at work. Sleep has become elusive, and I feel like I'm living on a razor's edge. Part of me wonders if I'm being too harsh. What if she really is pregnant? But another part of me can't shake the gut feeling that this might be another one of her manipulative tactics. I've spent countless hours researching false pregnancy claims and paternity rights. Each time I consider reaching out to her, I remember the toxicity of our past and how much better life has been since we parted ways. Since the breakup, I haven't told anyone about this. Neither my family nor my best friend, Mike. I'm at a loss about what to do next. Am I the bad guy for doubting Sarah and demanding proof? Should I have handled the situation differently? I keep replaying the conversation in my head, obsessively analyzing every detail. Sarah did look different, exhausted and stressed. But could it just be the fallout from our breakup? Why wait 2 months to tell me if she's really pregnant? Shouldn't she have known sooner? The threat of her exposing me is weighing heavily on me. My parents would be devastated if they thought I was abandoning a pregnant girlfriend. And my friends. God, I can only imagine their reaction. I've always prided myself on being a decent guy, and the thought of being branded as a deadbeat dad-to-be is eating me alive. But accepting this without question feels impossible. Sarah's history of deceit makes it hard to trust her word alone, and the thought of bringing a child into this world, especially with our relationship in such shambles, is overwhelming. I've considered reaching out to mutual friends to see if they have any insight, but I'm terrified of starting a rumor mill before I even know what's true. What if Sarah hasn't told anyone else yet? I don't want to be the one spreading this potentially false information. There's also a nagging fear that it might be true, and I'm not ready to be a father. Sarah and I had talked about having kids someday, but never with this kind of immediacy. The idea of being tied to her for the rest of my life, given how toxic our relationship was, is suffocating. I even worry that if she is pregnant, the child might not be mine. Given how accusatory she was about my fidelity, could she have been projecting? Was there someone else? The thought is horrific, but I can't ignore it. The more I think about it, the more confused and frustrated I become. I feel like I'm trapped in a nightmarish maze with no clear way out. If I reach out to Sarah for more information, am I opening myself up to more manipulation? If I ignore her, am I abandoning my child? Every option feels fraught with potential pitfalls. I keep hoping she'll reach out again with more information or agree to a paternity test. But so far, there's been nothing but silence. Part of me wonders if I should just give in to whatever Sarah wants. But the uncertainty and fear are paralyzing. I need to make a decision, but every choice seems to lead to a new and potentially devastating problem. I know that just trying to keep the peace isn't the right approach if there is a child involved. A child deserves parents who are both sure and committed, not someone who's merely trying to avoid conflict. I've even thought about seeking legal advice, but that feels like such a drastic measure. What if this is all just a misunderstanding or a false alarm? Would it be an overreaction to involve lawyers at this stage? The whole situation has forced me to reevaluate our entire relationship. I keep wondering if there were signs I missed or red flags I ignored. I thought I was being a good boyfriend by trying to reassure Sarah and prove my faithfulness. But did I inadvertently enable her behavior? Should I have ended things sooner? It's been a week since Sarah showed up at my door, and I still feel no closer to a resolution. Every day feels like a ticking clock, and if she really is pregnant, decisions will need to be made soon. But how can I make any decisions when I'm not even sure of the basic facts? I keep questioning whether I was right to insist on proof. Should I have been more sympathetic and trusting? Or is my caution justified given our history? I honestly don't know anymore, so here I am, seeking outside perspective. I know this is a complex situation, and maybe I'm not giving you all the details needed to make a judgment, but I'm at my wit's end. Am I wrong for not believing my ex-girlfriend and insisting on proof of her pregnancy? Or am I justified in my caution given our history? What would you do in my situation? Date 1. Hey everyone. It's been about 3 weeks since my original post, and a lot has happened. I wanted to give you an update on the situation with Sarah and her pregnancy claim. First off, I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your advice and perspectives really helped me gain some clarity. After a few days of radio silence following our confrontation, Sarah reached out via text. She apologized for her outburst and acknowledged why I might have doubts. She agreed to provide medical proof of the pregnancy and to take a paternity test once it was safe to do so. I was relieved that she seemed to be taking a more rational approach, though I remained cautious. We agreed to meet at a local coffee shop to discuss things further. I suggested a public place to avoid any potential drama and to keep things civil. When we met, Sarah looked different from when she had shown up at my door. She seemed calmer and more composed. She handed me an envelope containing ultrasound images, which seemed to confirm that she was indeed pregnant. But even with this new development, I'm still left grappling with my next steps. How do I move forward with such a monumental decision hanging over me? Sarah handed me the envelope containing the ultrasound images and a doctor's report confirming her pregnancy. The document stated she was about 10 weeks along, aligning with the timeline she had given me. Seeing those images felt like a punch to the gut. It was surreal, almost like I was staring at proof of a future I wasn't sure I was ready to face. We spent hours talking. Sarah revealed she had only found out about the pregnancy a week before showing up at my place. She admitted she was terrified and unsure how to approach me, especially given the state of our relationship. She acknowledged that her unannounced visit and demands were misguided and offered a heartfelt apology. I listened, struggling to keep an open mind. I shared my perspective, how her past behavior had eroded my trust, and how blindsiding me with this news had left me feeling unprepared and overwhelmed. We talked through our options. Sarah expressed her desire to keep the baby, but assured me she wouldn't force me into fatherhood. She hoped, however, that I'd be involved in the child's life. I told her I needed time to process everything. The paternity test was still on the table, and we agreed to wait until it was safe to perform the non-invasive prenatal paternity test, ideally after the 12th week of pregnancy. I left the meeting feeling a mixture of relief and anxiety. While Sarah seemed more rational, the weight of the decision still felt crushing. It was time to tell my family and close friends. I started with my parents. Their reactions were a storm of conflicting emotions. My mom was a mix of excitement at the thought of becoming a grandmother and deep concern over the situation's complexity. My dad, on the other hand, was more skeptical, reminding me of the tumultuous nature of my relationship with Sarah. They both supported my decision to get a paternity test and advised caution. Next, I told my best friend Mike. His initial shock gave way to supportive concern. He offered to be there for me no matter what and suggested I consider speaking to a lawyer to understand my rights and responsibilities, just in case. In the weeks that followed, Sarah and I kept in touch via text. She updated me on her doctor's appointments and how she was feeling. Navigating this new dynamic with someone from my past was both strange and challenging. Then, about a week ago, everything took a dramatic turn. Sarah called me in a panic, her voice trembling. She said she had started bleeding and was heading to the hospital. Without thinking, I rushed to meet her there. The next few hours were a harrowing blur of medical tests, anxious waiting, and intense discussions with doctors. The uncertainty and fear were palpable as I tried to piece together what was happening and what it meant for our future. When I got the news, it felt like a punch to the gut. Sarah had suffered a miscarriage. The doctor explained that it was unfortunately common in early pregnancies and assured me it wasn't anyone's fault. I was stunned, my mind racing as I struggled to process the fact that the potential of becoming a father had vanished before it even fully registered. Sarah was devastated. Despite our tumultuous history, seeing her in such profound pain was heart-wrenching. I stayed with her at the hospital until she was discharged. On the drive back to her place, the silence between us was heavy, laden with unsaid words and shattered dreams. When we arrived at her apartment, Sarah broke down completely. She apologized again for her handling of the situation, admitting she had been scared and overwhelmed. She confessed that her jealousy and accusations had been wrong, and losing the baby made her confront how much she had messed up between us. I listened, grappling with a tangled mix of emotions. Part of me felt deep sadness over the loss of a potential child, even though I had been conflicted about fatherhood. Another part felt a strange relief, which then triggered waves of guilt. And still, a small voice in the back of my mind wondered if this whole ordeal had been real or just another manipulation. I asked Sarah if she had told anyone else about the pregnancy. She said no, that she had been waiting to get past the first trimester before informing her family and friends. So only my parents, Mike, and I knew the full extent of the situation. That night, we talked for hours about the pregnancy, our failed relationship, and what might come next. Sarah said she planned to start therapy to address her trust issues and jealousy. She didn't ask to get back together or try to manipulate me further, which I appreciated. I told her I needed time and space to process everything. She agreed, acknowledging that it was probably best if we didn't see each other for a while. Leaving her apartment that night, I felt utterly drained but also oddly relieved. The emotional roller coaster of the past few weeks had taken its toll. Now, a week later, I'm still trying to piece together everything that happened. I've been seeing a therapist to help me navigate my feelings and understand the situation better. It's been invaluable to have a neutral party to talk to. I've also spent a lot of time reflecting on my relationship with Sarah and my own actions. While I still believe I was right to ask for proof of the pregnancy, I've come to realize there were moments when I could have communicated more effectively or been more understanding of her insecurities. Sarah and I have exchanged a few texts since that night. She's been going to therapy and says it's helping her gain insight into her behavior. She's apologized again for how she treated me during our relationship. I'm trying to navigate the next steps carefully, hoping to find clarity and healing for myself while supporting her as she works through her own issues. I'm still uncertain about the future. It seems unlikely that Sarah and I will ever rekindle a romantic relationship. Too much has happened, and we're both better off apart. However, I'm open to the possibility of developing a friendship in the future, once we've both had the time and space to heal and grow individually. As for the question of whether the pregnancy was real, I can only go by the medical documents and the confirmation from the hospital that Sarah had indeed miscarried. Despite this, the shadows of doubt linger due to our tumultuous history. For my own peace of mind, I've decided to accept the reality of the situation and move forward from there. This experience has taught me valuable lessons about communication, trust, and how past actions can impact relationships in profound ways. I'm committed to using these lessons to grow as a person and a partner in the future. My parents and Mike have been my rock throughout this ordeal. They've listened, given advice when I sought it, and provided unwavering support. I'm deeply grateful for their presence and understanding during such a challenging time. Reflecting on my original post, I can see how overwhelmed and confused I was. I still stand by my decision to ask for proof, but I now understand why Sarah may have reacted so intensely. Fear and hormones can drive people to act in ways they normally wouldn't. To those who asked in the comments, I haven't shared this situation with our mutual friends. Sarah and I agreed that it's a private matter and spreading it would only fuel unnecessary drama and gossip. On the work front, things have thankfully calmed down. The awkwardness with Emily and my other coworkers has mostly subsided. I've immersed myself in my projects, finding solace and distraction in my work. I know this update might not align with what some of you expected. Life rarely unfolds in neat, clear-cut scenarios. It's messy and complex, often leaving us with more questions than answers. I'm still processing everything that has happened and anticipate it will take time before I fully come to terms with it all. For now, I'm taking it one day at a time, focusing on my own growth and healing. Thank you all once again for your advice and support. It has been invaluable in helping me navigate this difficult journey. If anything significant changes, I'll be sure to post another update. For now, I'm striving to move forward, learn from this experience, and work towards building a better future for myself. Update 3. It's been about 2 months since my last update, and the situation with Sarah took a turn I never expected. After the miscarriage, Sarah and I had minimal contact. We exchanged occasional texts, mostly updates on her therapy progress and my polite acknowledgments. I was focused on moving forward, throwing myself into work and making a tentative attempt at dating again. My professional life was flourishing, and things with my coworkers, including Emily, had settled into a new normal. Then, about 3 weeks ago, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. The man on the other end identified himself as Robert and said we needed to talk about Sarah. My stomach dropped. Robert introduced himself as Sarah's ex-boyfriend. They had dated during a break Sarah and I took after a particularly explosive argument. I remembered that period, a painful 2 months apart. Robert revealed that he had recently learned about the pregnancy and miscarriage and had some information he believed I should know. We agreed to meet at a local bar the next evening. The hours leading up to our meeting were a whirlwind of anxiety. Part of me wanted to ignore the call altogether, but I knew I had to confront whatever was coming. When I met Robert at the bar, I was struck by how ordinary he seemed, about my age, seemingly decent. After we ordered drinks, he got straight to the point. "Sarah lied to you," he said. "The baby wasn't yours. It was mine." Felt like I'd been hit by a freight train. Robert explained that he and Sarah had continued seeing each other intermittently even after she and I reconciled. The last time they were together was just a week before Sarah and I broke up for good. Robert showed me text messages between him and Sarah, dating back several months. The messages painted a disturbing picture. Sarah had expressed her dissatisfaction with me, admitting she stayed in the relationship out of fear of being alone. There were frantic texts discussing her pregnancy and her uncertainty about what to do. As I scrolled through these messages, a sense of nausea overwhelmed me. Then I found a particularly damning message from Sarah to Robert, dated just a few days before she showed up at my door claiming to be pregnant with my child. "I have a plan," the message read. I'm going to tell him the baby is his. He makes good money and has always wanted a family. He'll be a good provider. My mind reeled. The revelation hit me like a sledgehammer. Sarah's entire story had been a manipulation from the start. I felt betrayed, angry, and humiliated. It wasn't just about the lies. It was the emotional manipulation and the cruel game she had played with my life. Since then, I've been grappling with this new layer of betrayal. I haven't told anyone about Robert's revelations, my parents or Mike. It feels like an additional layer of shame and complexity I'm not ready to share. I'm still processing the fallout, trying to understand how to move forward from here. In the meantime, I've decided to take a step back from everything, focusing on my own mental health and stability. I'm seeing my therapist more frequently and trying to piece together my shattered sense of trust. The road ahead is uncertain, but I'm committed to rebuilding and healing. Thank you all for your support and advice throughout this chaotic journey. Your perspectives have been invaluable. If there are any significant updates, I'll be sure to share them. For now, I'm just trying to pick up the pieces and find my way forward. I couldn't believe my eyes as I read the messages. Not only had Sarah betrayed me by cheating, but she had also tried to trap me into raising another man's child. Robert, her ex, felt so guilty after the miscarriage that he thought I deserved to know the truth. I thanked him for coming forward, even though part of me wished I could erase this whole nightmare from my memory. We sat in silence, nursing our beers, each lost in our own turmoil. Before leaving, Robert apologized for his role in this debacle. I couldn't muster the energy to hate him. After all, his honesty was the only thing that cut through the darkness. After he left, I sat at that bar for what felt like an eternity, trying to process the betrayal. The bartender, sensing my distress, gave me a beer on the house. I went home, feeling like I'd been hollowed out. I couldn't sleep or eat, so I called in sick to work. I spent the entire day alternating between seething anger and gut-wrenching disbelief. How could Sarah have lied so completely and so cruelly? How had I been so blind? The jealousy and accusations she hurled at me, all of it was a smokescreen for her own infidelities. The next day, I knew I had to confront Sarah. I couldn't let this lie fester any longer. I texted her, demanding a meeting. She agreed, likely thinking it was just another routine check-in. We met at the same coffee shop where she had shown me the ultrasound pictures. The moment she saw my face, she knew something was drastically wrong. Before she could utter a single word, I unloaded everything. My meeting with Robert, the damning text messages, all of it. For a fleeting second, she looked like she might deny it, but then she broke down, sobbing uncontrollably. She tried to explain, saying she was scared and desperate, that she thought if she could get me to accept the baby as mine, everything would work out. Her pathetic excuses only fueled my rage. I told her what she had done was beyond unforgivable. Not only had she shattered my trust in the most brutal way possible, but she had also been willing to drag an innocent child into her web of lies. Sarah pleaded for forgiveness, insisting she would do anything to make things right, but there was no fixing this. The trust between us was shattered beyond repair. I told her to never contact me again and that I hoped she would continue her therapy because she clearly needed serious help. Then, without another word, I walked out, ignoring her desperate pleas and broken sobs. The next few days were a whirlwind. I broke the news to my parents and Mike, and their reaction was a mix of fury and concern. My mom wanted to confront Sarah and give her a piece of her mind, but I asked her to hold off. I just wanted this whole nightmare to be over. I also decided to tell a few mutual friends about the situation. I didn't go into all the details, just that Sarah had cheated and lied about the pregnancy. Most of them were shocked and offered their support. One friend mentioned that she had suspected Sarah might be cheating, saying she had seen Sarah with another guy a few times but wasn't sure of the seriousness. She apologized for not speaking up sooner, and while I was hurt by her silence, I understood her reluctance to get involved. At work, I finally told Emily the entire story. Her reaction was incredibly understanding and supportive. She even admitted that she had always felt something was off about Sarah but had kept her thoughts to herself. Emily and I have actually grown closer through this ordeal, and who knows, Maybe something more might develop between us in the future. As for Sarah, I haven't heard from her since our last meeting. I've blocked her number and all her social media accounts. A mutual friend mentioned that Sarah has moved back in with her parents and is continuing therapy. Part of me hopes she gets the help she needs, but mostly, I just want her out of my life for good. Looking back, I can see how toxic our relationship was. Sarah's jealousy and insecurity weren't just annoying quirks. They were red flags of deeper issues. I should have ended things long before I did. I've been reflecting on why I stayed with Sarah for so long. Part of it was fear of being alone. Part of it was the misguided belief that I could fix her if I just tried hard enough. And part of it was the unhealthy satisfaction of feeling needed. One of the hardest things to come to terms with has been the loss of the future I thought I might have had. Even though I was uncertain about the pregnancy, I had started to imagine what it would be like to be a father. To have that ripped away only to discover it was all a lie has been incredibly tough. But I'm also relieved that I found out the truth before it was too late, and that I'm no longer tied to Sarah for the rest of my life. I've been focusing on myself these past few weeks. I've gotten back into running, a passion I had neglected. It's been therapeutic, helping me to reclaim a part of myself that I had lost. During my relationship with Sarah, I had given up running, reading, and spending time with friends. Now I'm rediscovering these activities. I'm reading more, reconnecting with old friends, and even considering taking a solo trip. Work has been a positive distraction. I've immersed myself in a new project, and my boss has hinted that a promotion might be in my future if I continue performing well. It's refreshing to have something constructive to focus on. When it comes to dating, I'm not ready to dive into anything serious yet. I need time to heal and rebuild my trust, but I'm not completely closed off to the idea of meeting someone new when the time feels right. I've learned a great deal from this experience. About myself, relationships, and trust. It's important to trust your instincts. If something feels off, it's usually for a reason. I want to thank everyone who followed my story from the beginning. Your support and advice helped me gain perspective when I was too close to the situation to see things clearly. If there's one key takeaway from my experience, it's this. Trust is incredibly valuable and difficult to restore once it's been broken. Don't stay in a relationship where you're constantly questioning your partner or yourself. If someone shows you their true colors, believe them the first time. I'm taking things one day at a time. Some days are tougher than others, but overall I'm doing okay. I'm looking forward to the future, whatever it may hold. I know that whatever challenges come my way, I'm strong enough to face them. This will be my final update on this situation. It's time for me to close this chapter of my life and move on. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Here's to new beginnings and better days ahead. Update 3. It's been about 10 months since my last update, and I didn't expect to be writing another one. I thought the chapter with Sarah was closed for good, but life sometimes throws unexpected curveballs. After everything with Sarah and the revelation of her cheating, I focused on moving forward. I threw myself into work, continued therapy, and started rebuilding my social life. Things were going well. The promotion I had been hoping for came through. I'm now leading my own team on a major project, which has been both challenging and rewarding. Emily and I have been working closely together, and there has been some flirting between us. We haven't acted on it yet, mostly because I'm cautious about getting involved with a coworker after everything that happened with Sarah. However, the attraction is definitely there. Then, about a month ago, everything changed again. I was at the grocery store one evening, while I was picking up some groceries for dinner, I literally ran into Robert. Yes, that Robert, Sarah's ex-boyfriend, the one who had revealed the truth about the baby. We both stood there, momentarily stunned by the sheer coincidence. After a brief pause, Robert asked if I wanted to grab a coffee and talk. I hesitated at first. Did I really want to revisit all of that pain? But my curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed. Over coffee, Robert updated me on Sarah's situation. After our confrontation, she had a complete breakdown, quitting her job, moving back in with her parents, and undergoing intensive therapy. Robert had stayed in touch with her parents, feeling somewhat responsible for her condition. He then told me that Sarah had recently discovered she was pregnant again, and this time the baby was definitely Robert's. Though they weren't back together, Robert was planning to co-parent with her. I felt a surge of anger. Why should Sarah get to have a baby after lying about the last one? Yet, another part of me was relieved that I wasn't in Robert's position, tied to Sarah for the rest of my life. Robert appeared genuinely excited about becoming a father, though he admitted he was nervous about co-parenting with Sarah given their history. He mentioned that Sarah had made significant progress in therapy, addressing her trust issues and manipulative behavior, but he remained cautious. Before we parted ways, Robert hesitated and then said, "There's something else you should know. Sarah has been asking about you. She wants to apologize in person for everything she did." I told Robert I'd think about it, but I wasn't making any promises. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about what Robert had said. I discussed it with my therapist, trying to sort out my feelings. On one hand, I had no obligation to see Sarah or hear her out. What she had done was unforgivable, and I had every right to keep her out of my life. On the other hand, a small part of me wondered if hearing her apology might provide some closure. After much contemplation, I decided it would be better to face this head-on rather than always wondering what if. I asked Robert to arrange the meeting, making it clear that it would be a one-time thing. We met at a park on a Saturday afternoon, a public place chosen for its neutrality and to avoid any potential drama. When I saw Sarah approaching, I was struck by how different she looked, smaller and less confident. She sat down on a bench next to me, keeping a respectful distance. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Finally, Sarah took a deep breath and began. "I know that nothing I say can undo what I did, but I want you to hear me out. I've spent a lot of time reflecting on my actions and how deeply I hurt you. I am truly sorry for everything. The lies, the manipulation, and the way I tried to trap you into raising a child that wasn't yours. I realize now how wrong I was and how badly I damaged our trust." Sarah continued, "I know I'm beyond sorry for everything. The cheating, the lies, for trying to trap you with a baby that wasn't yours. It was utterly unforgivable, and I'll carry the weight of it for the rest of my life." She went on to explain that she'd been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder, which might shed light on, but certainly didn't excuse, her past behavior. She spoke about the intensive therapy she'd been undergoing, trying to manage her emotions and insecurities in healthier ways. "I'm not sharing this to ask for forgiveness," she said, her voice heavy. "I know I don't deserve that. I just wanted you to know that I fully understand the pain I caused you, and I'm committed to making sure I never hurt anyone like this again." When she finished, I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I told her that while I acknowledged her apology, forgiveness wasn't something I could offer. Not yet. The scars were still too raw, the betrayal too profound. However, I did hope she'd continue with her therapy and work on becoming a better person, especially now that she was going to be a mother. Sarah nodded, her expression a mix of sadness and relief. She thanked me for meeting with her, and as she stood to leave, she paused. "I truly am happy for you," she said quietly. "Robert told me about your promotion and about Emily. I hope it works out for you. You deserve to be happy." With that, she turned and walked away. I remained on that bench long after she had gone, struggling to process everything. It wasn't the dramatic confrontation I had once imagined. Instead, it felt like a hollow, quiet closure, a muted end to a chapter that had consumed so much of my life. In the weeks following that meeting, I found myself mired in a fog of introspection. I've thought endlessly about Sarah, our relationship, and the wreckage left in the aftermath. I've come to understand that while forgiveness might never come, releasing the simmering anger I've clung to is essential. It's not about condoning her actions, but about freeing myself from the heavy, toxic emotions that have been dragging me down. As for my personal life, it's been a mix of tentative steps forward and lingering shadows. Remember the flirtation with Emily I mentioned? About a week after my meeting with Sarah, Emily and I finally confronted it. We finally tackled the elephant in the room. Emily and I decided to give dating a shot. We made an agreement to keep things professional at work and be upfront with our boss to avoid any conflicts of interest. It's early days, but being with Emily feels refreshingly different from anything I've experienced before. The level of trust and communication we share is a far cry from the turbulence of my past relationship. We're taking things slow, fully aware of the potential complications of dating a coworker, but so far, it's been genuinely exhilarating. My friends and family have been overwhelmingly supportive. Mike even joked that he knew Emily, and I would end up together from the moment he heard about the crazy ex-girlfriend incident at the office. My parents are just relieved to see me happy and thriving once again. Work has been a beacon of positivity. The project I'm leading is not only on track but thriving, and my team has truly come together. Seeing the fruits of my hard work come to life is immensely satisfying and energizing. Regarding Sarah and Robert, I've chosen to keep my distance. Robert sends occasional updates, which I appreciate, but I've firmly established that I don't want to be involved in their lives. I wish them well, especially for their child, but that chapter is decisively closed. To everyone who has followed my story from the beginning, thank you for your unwavering support and advice. Your words were a lifeline during the darkest days following Sarah's betrayal. While I'm uncertain about the future, my relationship with Emily is still unfolding and my career is on an upward trajectory. I am invigorated and hopeful. For the first time in ages, I'm genuinely excited about what's to come. I feel like I've been given a fresh start, with the chance to apply all the lessons I've learned and build a life that's not only fulfilling but exhilarating. This will be my final update on this situation. It's time to close this chapter and look forward to what lies ahead. Thank you all once again for your incredible support throughout this journey. Here's to new beginnings, hard-earned wisdom, and the boundless possibilities of the future.